She walked in, slipped off her dress and whispered, "Move over." It was one of the busiest research hubs in the outer sectors, where scientists and engineers from multiple alien species worked together. Despite their advanced technology, the aliens were cautious, meticulous, and sometimes painfully slow when it came to problem solving. On a normal cycle, the station hummed with its usual rhythm, hovering drones delivering supplies, lights flickering over maintenance corridors, and the soft chatter of the alien crew in languages that twisted like liquid sounds. But today, the hum was broken. Everyone sensed a change before it happened. The airlock doors opened with a soft hiss, and a figure stepped in. She was human, tall and confident, moving with the kind of precision that spoke of countless hours of training. She wore a bulky exosuit at first, the kind designed for survival in space hazards and unknown environments. But what drew the crew's attention was the way she carried herself, calm, unafraid, and unusually focused. For a moment, the aliens simply stared. None of them were accustomed to human behavior in emergencies. Humans, after all, were famous throughout the sector for being bold, sometimes reckless, yet capable of brilliant problem-solving when the stakes were high. This human seemed to carry that aura. She paused in the center of the docking bay, her visor retracting with a soft hiss. The crew could now see her face clearly. Short cropped hair, sharp eyes that scanned the room like a hawk, and a calm expression that didn't betray even a hint of fear. Then slowly she removed the exosuit. She didn't throw it off or toss it carelessly. It was folded neatly, almost ceremoniously, and placed on the floor beside her. There was something oddly symbolic in the gesture. The aliens were puzzled, some even murmuring among themselves. "Move over," she said in a voice clear enough for everyone to hear. It was simple, commanding, and strangely warm at the same time. The station commander, a tall, silver-skinned being with elongated limbs, stepped forward. "Excuse me," he said in the translator's voice, which converted his alien language into something humans could understand. "But this area is restricted. You cannot." "Move over," the human repeated, her tone firm yet not aggressive. Then, without waiting for permission, she walked toward the central control console. She pressed her hand to the interface, and the holographic screens flickered to life. Data streams cascaded in colors the aliens were unused to, streams that formed patterns almost like a visual language of their own. The commander's tentacles twitched nervously. "You understand the systems?" he asked. The human didn't answer immediately. Instead, her eyes scanned the holographic readouts, focusing on the orbiting debris fields surrounding the station. The aliens exchanged glances. Humans had a reputation for being unpredictable. They were often underestimated, even in the most scientific communities. But when situations grew dangerous, humans seemed to have an instinct that no amount of logic or technology could replicate. "An asteroid swarm," she finally said, her voice calm. "It's on a collision course with the station." The room fell silent. While the aliens had detection systems and alarms, none of their calculations had flagged this trajectory as an immediate threat. Yet here was a human, confidently interpreting data that seemed invisible to their own instruments. The commander's voice was tinged with disbelief. "Impossible. Our sensors did not detect any large bodies in approach." "Your sensors," the human said softly, "measure speed and size, but debris fields aren't just rocks. They move unpredictably. I've seen this before." Her words hung in the air, and slowly the crew began to pay attention. There was something magnetic about her focus, an energy that seemed to make the room hold its collective breath. She did not panic. She did not shout. She simply moved, and in her movements there was authority. The human began inputting commands into the console, her fingers dancing over the controls with precision. Each keystroke was intentional. Each gesture seemed to anticipate the behavior of the station itself. Holograms shifted, rotating to show asteroid clusters that none of the aliens had noticed before. Tiny fragments, almost invisible, were weaving a dangerous path straight toward the station's outer structures. "Redirect thrusters," she commanded. "Magnetic shields at maximum. Prepare auxiliary energy channels." The alien engineers froze. Their systems were capable, but they were not accustomed to someone giving direct orders, especially a human. Yet her tone did not allow for argument. Slowly they began to comply, following her lead as if drawn by an invisible thread of authority. One young engineer, trembling tentacles and all, whispered to a colleague, "She knows what she's doing. I can feel it." "Of course," the colleague replied, eyes wide. "Humans always find a way." As the minutes passed, the asteroid swarm grew closer. Sensors flashed warnings, and alarms sounded across the station. Yet the human's calm demeanor never wavered. She moved from console to console, calculating trajectories, testing magnetic pulses, and issuing precise commands. The aliens watched in awe. Never had they seen someone work with such speed, accuracy, and calm under pressure. It was almost as if she was dancing with the station itself, guiding its systems like an extension of her own mind. "Energy shields at 50%, she muttered. "Not enough. Divert auxiliary power to maximum. Thrusters ready." A chorus of affirmative responses came from the alien crew. The station trembled as the thrusters fired in careful pulses, adjusting its orbit in real time to dodge the incoming debris. Small rocks clinked against the outer hull, leaving scratches but no catastrophic damage. "Good," she said, her eyes never leaving the holographic display. "Now focus on the central cluster. That's the dangerous one." The central cluster of asteroids was massive, larger than any single structure on the station. The aliens had avoided direct confrontation with it, deeming it too risky. But the humans studied it like a puzzle. She noted the gravitational tugs, the angular momentum, and the velocity of each rock. Then, with a few swift commands, she activated the station's magnetic pulse emitters, creating a ripple of energy that nudged the asteroids off course. Slowly, carefully, the cluster shifted. The station groaned as its shields absorbed impacts, but nothing critical failed. The aliens began to understand what was happening. They were witnessing the human-'s instinct for problem-solving in real time. "Almost there," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "Come on." The final asteroid, the largest of the cluster, barreled toward the station. The human's fingers flew across the console, adjusting thrusters, shields, and magnetic fields simultaneously. The alien crew held their breath. In those moments, silence dominated the station, broken only by the hum of energy pulses and the distant sound of structural strain. And then it passed. The asteroid shifted slightly, missing the station by a hair's breadth. Relief washed over the crew. The human exhaled, but only slightly. She looked at the screens, checking that every small fragment had been accounted for. The commander stepped forward, his limbs shaking slightly. You saved us," he said, awe evident in his voice. "How did you?" The human shrugged lightly, almost modestly. "Experience," she said simply. "Humans adapt. We find solutions where others see none." She straightened and took a small step back from the console. Her eyes scanned the crew, who were still in shock. "This station," she said, "can survive, but you must be ready. Space is full of surprises, and sometimes you need to make room for new ways of thinking." The aliens nodded, some still unable to believe what they had witnessed. A human had entered their station, removed her suit, taken command of their systems, and saved them all without a single moment of panic. It was a lesson in courage, ingenuity, and the unpredictable brilliance of humanity. As the airlock doors prepared to close for the next cycle, the human gave a small nod. "Move over," she whispered again, this time not as a command but as a promise. Humans were coming, and when they did, the galaxy would never be the same. And with that, she vanished into the corridors of the station, leaving behind awe, respect, and a quiet sense of wonder that would linger for cycles to come. The humans' calm confidence lingered in the station's corridors, like an echo that refused to fade. The alien crew, still recovering from the shock of her sudden appearance and remarkable problem-solving, moved with newfound energy. For the first time in many cycles, they began to believe that humans were more than just unpredictable outsiders. They were problem solvers, leaders, and perhaps even heroes. Yet the crisis was far from over. Though the immediate asteroid cluster had been diverted, sensors continued to flicker, detecting movement on the outer edge of Zellara 9 orbit. The station commander, still pale with a hint of fear, summoned his team to the observation deck. The human followed, her eyes narrowing at the sight of the approaching swarm. "Look at that," she said quietly, pointing to a shifting mass of rocks and debris illuminated by the sun. The first cluster was just a warning. This one could destroy the station if we don't act." The commander's elongated fingers trembled over the controls. "Impossible," he whispered. "We've never seen a swarm this coordinated or this large." "Then you haven't seen a swarm like this," the human replied. "It's moving faster than predicted. Something is pushing it. Maybe a gravitational anomaly, maybe something else. Either way, we don't have time to analyze. It's coming and we must act." The alien engineers glanced at each other, uncertainty written across their faces. Most were trained to rely on detailed calculations, protocols, and simulations. This human, however, seemed to operate on intuition, experience, and an uncanny ability to see patterns where none existed. It was unnerving, yet they could not ignore it. The human moved to the main console. She accessed the station's trajectory analysis systems, linking the sensors in real time. A holographic map of the debris field appeared, glowing in blues, oranges, and greens. Small asteroids danced in complex arcs, forming clusters and gaps that seemed almost alive. "See those gaps?" she asked, pointing to a series of openings between clusters. "They're moving faster than the larger masses. If we can guide the station through them, we can minimize damage, but we'll need precision and trust." The commander hesitated. Trust was not something easily given, especially to a species known for its unpredictability. "And if we fail?" he asked. "Then we adapt," the human said simply. "Humans don't panic, we find solutions under pressure, and so can you." Her words were simple, yet they carried weight. Slowly, the crew began to move with purpose, following her guidance. She divided them into teams, one for shields, one for thrusters, and one to monitor structural integrity. Every team had precise tasks, and every task was coordinated with others in real time. The human walked among them, checking displays, making adjustments, and offering encouragement. Her presence alone seemed to change the atmosphere. The aliens moved faster, thought faster, and even argued less. Where confusion had reigned, focus now dominated. Minutes passed, and the swarm drew closer. Sensors began to register faster-moving rocks that could punch through the station's outer hull. The human adjusted the magnetic pulse generators, creating protective fields that deflected smaller debris. "Keep the shield steady," she instructed. "Do not waste energy on minor impacts. Focus on the largest threats." One young engineer, whose tentacles quivered with anxiety, asked, "But what about the central cluster? It's moving too fast. It will hit the southern dock." "Then we make room," she replied with a faint smile. "Move the auxiliary energy channels toward that sector. Divert thrusters to compensate. We can shift the station slightly, just enough to avoid a direct hit. Trust the plan." The engineer nodded, and slowly the station began to respond. Thrusters pulsed, magnetic fields rippled, and energy shields glowed brighter as power was redirected. The human's commands were precise, almost surgical, as if she were conducting a symphony of machinery. Suddenly, a massive asteroid broke through the outer defenses. The shields flickered under the impact, and alarms blared across the station. The aliens froze in panic, but the human's calm voice cut through the chaos. Divert main shields to the south. Use auxiliary thrusters. Now her timing was perfect. The station tilted just enough to deflect the impact. Sparks flew along the hull, but no critical systems were damaged. The crew exhaled collectively, relief mixing with disbelief. "See," the human said, checking the readouts. "It's manageable. We just have to stay focused." Hours passed, and the swarm continued to press closer. The human's strategies grew more complex. She calculated trajectories, energy outputs, and gravitational effects faster than anyone in the room could follow. The aliens, however, adapted to her rhythm. They began to anticipate her commands, moving in sync with her as if the station itself had become an extension of her mind. At one point, she paused, scanning the holographic map. Her eyes narrowed. "There's an anomaly," she muttered. "Something is affecting the swarm's movement. Not gravity, not magnetism, something else." The commander leaned in, curious and nervous. "Something else? What do you mean?" "Intelligence," the human said, her voice low but firm. "It's possible the debris isn't just natural. It's being influenced. Could be a remnant of an automated defense system on the planet, or something more. Either way, we need to act fast, or the station could be destroyed." The crew exchanged worried glances. Aliens were not used to thinking in terms of intelligence hidden in space debris. It sounded like a story from the old human legends. Impossible, but not improbable when humans were involved. "Prepare the station's scanners," she commanded. "I want to map every fragment and predict its path. We'll need to be precise, far more precise than before." Hours became cycles as the human guided the crew. She taught them to see patterns, anticipate movements, and respond in real time. Slowly, the station's odds of survival began to rise. Even the commander, who had been skeptical at first, began to marvel at her ability to solve complex problems under extreme pressure. By the next observation cycle, the swarm had shifted. The humans' calculations and guidance had created safe channels through the debris, allowing the station to maneuver without taking direct hits. The aliens worked tirelessly, but they did so with newfound confidence, inspired by the humans' calm decisiveness. "Good," she said, smiling faintly. "We're making progress, but don't relax yet. The central cluster is still too dangerous. We'll need another maneuver." Her hands moved over the console again, adjusting thrusters, shields, and auxiliary power. Holographic lines traced the paths of asteroids, showing slight adjustments that would make all the difference. "Look at that," she said softly, pointing to a tiny gap between two massive rocks. "If we can align the station just right, we can pass through without a single major impact. But we have to move in sync, no mistakes." The aliens nodded, following her lead with precision. Every thruster pulse, every shield adjustment, every energy reroute was timed perfectly. The station shifted, rotated, and tilted, guided by the humans' calculations and the crew's newfound confidence. The central cluster loomed closer. It was massive, larger than any previous threat, and the pressure on the crew was immense. But the humans' presence kept fear at bay. Her calm, confident energy acted like a magnet, drawing the crew's focus and determination into a single, unified force. "Steady, steady now," she commanded. The station moved through the channel with careful grace. Sparks flew as smaller rocks scraped the outer hull, but the main body of the station passed unscathed. The crew erupted in cheers, relief flooding the observation deck. Even the commander allowed himself a rare smile. You've done it," he said, voice shaking with awe. "We survived." The human shook her head slightly. "We survived together. Humans are good at improvisation, yes, but your cooperation made this possible. Never forget that. Technology alone isn't enough. It's teamwork that saves lives." Her words resonated deeply. The aliens realized that, for all their advanced systems, they had underestimated the value of adaptability and quick thinking, the kind that humans seem to possess in abundance. As the immediate danger passed, the human took a step back from the console. Her eyes scanned the debris field one last time. Though the swarm had been avoided, small fragments still drifted dangerously close. "We'll need constant monitoring," she said. "This isn't over. Space never rests, and neither should we." The commander bowed slightly. "Your species, humans, you are remarkable. I don't know how to thank you." The human smiled faintly. "You don't need to thank me. Just remember, don't underestimate the unexpected. Humans are not perfect, but we adapt, and sometimes that makes all the difference." Her words echoed in the minds of the alien crew as she turned and walked away, disappearing down the corridor. Though the swarm had passed, the impression she left behind was permanent. The aliens had witnessed human ingenuity, courage, and adaptability firsthand. And they knew, without doubt, that humanity would play a larger role in the galaxy than anyone had imagined. The station had survived the asteroid swarm, but the sense of relief was short-lived. Even as the alien crew worked tirelessly to repair minor hull damage, sensors continued to flash warnings. Something new was moving through the outer orbit of Zelara 9, a disturbance unlike anything the station had recorded before. The human stood at the central console, eyes narrowing at the holographic display. "This isn't random debris," she said quietly. "It's organized, or at least it behaves like it has a purpose. That means we can predict some of it, but only if we act fast." The commander stepped forward, his limbs still trembling from the previous ordeal. "We've survived once," he said. "Do we really have to face more?" "Yes," the human replied, calm but firm. "Survival depends on adaptation. Humans don't panic. We study, we calculate, we improvise. That's what will save us now." The aliens watched her, a mixture of admiration and unease in their expressions. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but their ability to remain calm under pressure and to solve problems no one else could was undeniable. The human divided the crew into specialized teams again, but this time her approach was different. She paired alien engineers with their AI systems in ways that had never been done before, forcing collaboration between organic and artificial intelligence. "Listen to the AI," she instructed. "It sees patterns you cannot, but your judgment is vital too. Combine them. Don't rely on one alone." The aliens hesitated. Many were used to strict protocols and independent work, but the humans' insistence on teamwork sparked something new. Slowly they began to follow her instructions, their movements precise and coordinated. "Good," she said, moving from console to console. "Now let's look at the outer disturbance. These readings, they suggest the presence of larger objects. Not just rocks, but maybe remnants of artificial structures." The commander's tentacles twitched nervously. "Artificial structures, could they be from your species?" "Maybe," she said, "or maybe not. Either way, they pose a threat. We must assume intelligence until proven otherwise." Her words silenced the crew. Intelligence meant strategy, adaptation, and unpredictability. That raised the stakes. This was no longer a simple navigation problem. It was a test of wit, courage, and improvisation. The human began adjusting the station's sensors to track the movement of the objects more precisely. Holographic projections filled the room, showing irregular shapes moving in tight formations, almost as if they were scanning the station itself. "See that pattern?" she said, pointing to a cluster that shifted direction with alarming speed. "They're testing us. I've seen this before. The key is to anticipate, not react. Move before they force us to move." The alien engineers worked frantically, following her lead. Thrusters were adjusted in micropulses, magnetic shields recalibrated, and energy was distributed with surgical precision. Even the AI systems responded differently under the humans' commands, their calculations now integrated with intuition and strategy. Hours passed, and the objects drew closer. The station rocked as minor impacts from smaller debris rattled the hull, but the humans' preemptive adjustments kept the structure intact. She moved like a conductor leading an orchestra, her hands over consoles, her eyes scanning readouts, and her mind calculating possibilities faster than anyone could follow. Auxiliary thrusters online, she said, and shields at 80%. Focus fire on the largest approaching object. Divert energy from the non-critical systems. Now. The crew responded instantly. Pulses of energy shot from the shields, deflecting smaller fragments, while the main thrusters nudged the station in a careful arc. One massive object, larger than any before, scraped the outer hull. Sparks flew, alarms blared, but the damage was minor. The human leaned over the console, her eyes sharp. "That's not enough," she muttered. "We need to create a controlled path through them." Small adjustments, precise timing, and cooperation between every system. The aliens nodded, inspired by her calm determination. Even the youngest engineers, previously trembling with fear, now worked with steady hands and confident movements. They were learning, adapting, and beginning to understand the human approach, intuition paired with calculation, calmness paired with courage. She moved to a secondary console, monitoring structural integrity. Some of the outer hull sensors are picking up microfractures. Nothing critical yet, but if the next wave hits, we need to reinforce quickly. One of the alien engineers, a tall being with blue crystalline skin, asked nervously, "How can you stay so calm? Don't you feel fear?" The human smiled faintly. "Of course I feel it. But fear is just information. It tells you what's dangerous. It doesn't make decisions for you. You decide." Her words resonated with the crew. They began to think differently, not just reacting to problems, but analyzing them, anticipating them, and finding creative solutions. Suddenly, one of the AI systems issued a warning. "Large object approaching, collision imminent in 2 minutes." The human didn't flinch. "Fine," she said. 2 minutes is enough. Thrusters adjust course by 1.5 degrees. Shields focus on the leading edge. Structural teams brace the southern sector. Every system moved in perfect harmony. The station tilted slightly, and energy shields pulsed with concentrated force. The massive object passed, grazing the outer hull but failing to inflict major damage. The alien crew erupted in cheers, but the human held up her hand. "Not done yet," she said. "There's more coming. Stay focused." For the next several cycles, the human guided the crew through increasingly complex maneuvers. She improvised new strategies, using gravity wells from Zelara 9 to adjust the station's orbit subtly, turning potential collisions into harmless glances off the hull. At one point, she paused to check the logs. "These objects," she said, "they're not random. Someone or something is deliberately testing the station, and they're learning from us. That means we have to be unpredictable too." The commander, looking exhausted but determined, asked, "Unpredictable? How do we do that?" The human's eyes gleamed. "By thinking like humans. Anticipate, improvise, adapt. Change your patterns. Make them guess, make them follow us instead of the other way around." The aliens nodded, slowly understanding. Their movements became less mechanical, more intuitive, guided by human ingenuity. They began experimenting with unconventional maneuvers, creating temporary gaps in the swarm's formation, and redirecting debris in ways no protocol had ever suggested. Hours turned into cycles, and finally, the swarm began to disperse. The objects that had threatened the station drifted off course, unable to predict the humans' ingenuity. The station remained intact, battered but functional. The commander finally exhaled, relief washing over him. I don't know what to say," he admitted. "You have saved us again, and this time you've taught us something as well." The human smiled faintly. "You already had it in you," she said. "You just needed to see it in action. Humans are not invincible, but we are adaptable. And adaptability, combined with teamwork, can overcome almost anything." The crew nodded, inspired and grateful. They had seen human ingenuity firsthand, and they understood now why humans had a reputation across the galaxy. unpredictable, fearless, and capable of turning almost certain disaster into survival. As the human walked away from the console, she glanced at the stars beyond the station. "The universe doesn't wait," she said softly, "and neither should we. There's always another challenge, another obstacle, but we face it together and we overcome it." The aliens watched her leave, a quiet awe settling over the station. They had survived not because of their technology alone, but because a human had shown them how to think differently, act decisively, and adapt without fear. In the days that followed, the station buzzed with new energy. Repairs continued, but the lessons remained. Humans, the crew realized, brought more than courage. They brought vision, adaptability, and a spark that could turn impossible odds into triumph. And somewhere in the quiet corridors of the station, the human smiled to herself, already thinking ahead. There were more challenges coming, more dangers waiting. But she knew one thing: humans would rise to meet them, and when they did, the galaxy would watch in awe. The days after the asteroid swarm had passed were tense but productive. The alien crew of the station moved with a new sense of purpose. They repaired minor damage, recalibrated sensors, and adjusted thrusters with precision. Yet, a subtle unease lingered in the air. The humans' warning that there were always new challenges echoed in everyone's minds. The calm was shattered when the station's alarms screamed in unison. A massive object, larger than anything previously encountered, had entered the system. Sensors showed it moving at high velocity, and its trajectory intersected with the station's orbit. The human's eyes narrowed at the holographic display. "This isn't a normal debris cluster," she said. Her voice was calm, but her tone carried weight. "It's massive and it's coming fast. If it hits, the station will be destroyed." The commander's tentacles twitched nervously. "We survived before. Can we survive this?" "Yes," the human said without hesitation, "but only if we work together. This is the test. This is where humans and those willing to learn shine." The crew scrambled into action, moving under her guidance. She divided them into specialized teams with clear tasks: shields, thrusters, auxiliary energy, and structural reinforcements. Every movement was calculated, every decision precise. The human's presence transformed the chaos into organized effort. "Auxiliary thrusters at maximum," she commanded. "Shields focus on the forward face. Structural teams brace the hull and monitor every seam." The station trembled as the object drew closer. It was enormous, irregularly shaped, and its surface glowed with an unfamiliar energy. No protocol could have prepared the crew for this, but the human's calm determination acted as a stabilizing force. "This is bigger than anything we've seen," one alien engineer muttered. "How do we even begin to stop it?" "By being smart," she replied. "We can't overpower it, but we can influence its trajectory. We'll use every tool at our disposal: gravity wells, magnetic fields, thrusters, and energy shields. But we must act together as one." The human's hands moved over the consoles, directing precise energy pulses and thruster adjustments. Holographic projections tracked the object's movement in real time. The alien crew followed her commands, even as fear gripped some of them. They had learned to trust her instinct, her calculations, and her unwavering confidence. The massive object grazed the outer shields, sending sparks and energy surges across the station. Alarms blared and the hull groaned under the stress. For a moment it seemed as though the station might not hold. The aliens froze in panic, but the human's voice cut through. "Focus. We've done this before. We can do it again. Don't panic. Adjust shields, divert energy, and brace the hull. Trust me and trust yourselves." With her guidance, the crew worked with unprecedented coordination. Thrusters nudged the station in micro-movements, energy shields pulsed with calculated intensity, and structural teams reinforced the hull with rapid precision. The station moved like a living entity, responding to the human's commands and the crew's combined efforts. Minutes passed, each one stretching longer than the last. The object loomed closer, its energy reading spiking, threatening to breach the shields. The human's eyes scanned the data, calculating possibilities, anticipating impacts, and improvising new strategies on the fly. "We need a controlled deflection," she said. "Use the gravitational field of Zelara 9 to nudge it, but it must be precise. One wrong move, and it could hit us head-on." The aliens worked feverishly, adjusting thrusters to align the station perfectly with the planet's gravity. Energy shields concentrated on specific points, while auxiliary systems redirected power to critical zones. It was a delicate balance, requiring every member of the crew to act in perfect synchronization. The massive object responded, shifting its trajectory slightly. Sparks flew as minor fragments hit the hull, but the main body began to glide past the station's path. The crew exhaled collectively, but the human's eyes remained fixed on the data. "Not enough," she muttered. "We need more control, focus on the edges, use the magnetic field to guide the smaller fragments away. Thrusters, micro-adjustments every second." The aliens followed her commands with growing confidence. They adjusted shields, redirected energy, and braced for impacts. The station moved as one, guided by the humans' calm authority and precise calculations. Suddenly, a series of smaller debris broke off from the main object, hurtling toward the station at high speed. The humans' fingers flew over the console, activating magnetic pulse generators and energy shields. Each fragment was deflected just enough to avoid serious damage. "Excellent," she said. "Keep it steady. We're almost through." The object, now partially influenced by the station's maneuvers, began to drift past. Its path curved around Zelara 9 gravity, narrowly missing the station's core. The crew held their breath as the final fragments passed, some scraping the hull but failing to cause critical damage. At last, the immediate danger was over. The station was battered but intact. Alarms silenced and sensors returned to normal. The alien crew, exhausted and shaken, looked at the human with awe. She had guided them through a threat that seemed insurmountable, using ingenuity, calmness, and precise leadership. The commander finally spoke, his voice filled with gratitude and wonder. "You've done it again." "How can one human accomplish so much?" The human shook her head slightly. "Not one human, us. Humans inspire, yes, but it's teamwork that saved the station. Your species, your skills, and your cooperation made it possible. Remember that." Her words sank into the crew's minds. They had seen firsthand the power of human ingenuity, not just raw intelligence, but the ability to remain calm, think creatively, and inspire others in moments of extreme danger. The human moved through the observation deck, checking systems, consoles, and hull integrity. "There are still minor damages," she noted. "Repairs must continue, but the station will survive. And you will survive too if you continue to trust yourselves and work together." One of the younger engineers, still trembling, asked quietly, "Do humans always stay calm in the face of such danger?" The human smiled faintly. "Not always, but we've learned that panic doesn't help. Thinking clearly, acting decisively, and trusting those around you does. That's what matters." The commander, still in awe, nodded. "You've not only saved the station but taught us something valuable. Humans, they are more than we imagined." The human glanced at the stars beyond the observation deck. "The galaxy is full of challenges," she said softly. "Asteroids, debris, unexpected events. But humans and anyone willing to think, adapt, and work together can face them. And we can prevail." The crew returned to their stations, repairing damage and recalibrating systems with renewed energy and determination. The humans' presence had left an indelible mark on them. They had survived the turning point, not by following protocols alone, but by embracing ingenuity, courage, and the unexpected brilliance of a human mind. As the human walked through the corridors, she reflected on the events. The galaxy was unpredictable, full of dangers and opportunities. But with preparation, adaptability, and collaboration, even the most daunting threats could be overcome. She paused at the docking bay, looking out at the swirling clouds of Zelara 9. "This is just the beginning," she whispered. "There will be more challenges, more tests, but humans and those willing to learn from us will face them, and together we will succeed." The alien crew watched her from afar, a quiet awe settling over the station. They had seen human ingenuity, courage, and leadership at its finest, and they knew, without doubt, that humanity would play a greater role in the galaxy than anyone had imagined. The station was battered, the crew weary, but hope burned brighter than ever. And at the center of it all was the human, guiding, inspiring, and proving that when humans and their allies face the unknown, they rise to meet it with skill, courage, and heart. The station floated above Zelara 9 like a silent sentinel, battered but alive. The massive threat had passed, but its impact lingered in every corridor, in every hum of the engines, and in the nervous energy of the alien crew. Repairs had begun in earnest, yet the true work, reflection, understanding, and adaptation, was only just starting. The human moved through the corridors, her presence calm and purposeful. Every step she took seemed to command respect without demanding it. The aliens, now more confident and organized than ever, followed her example. They had survived impossible odds, guided by her intuition, creativity, and calm leadership. The commander met her at the central hub, his face etched with exhaustion, but his eyes gleaming with admiration. "I have seen many brave beings in my cycles," he said, his translator converting his alien tones into clear speech. "But you have done more than survive. You have inspired." The human nodded lightly. "Inspiration is not enough. Action is what matters. You adapted. You acted. That's why the station survived." He studied her thoughtfully. "Your species, humans, you are remarkable. You seem fearless yet calculated, bold yet careful. How do you balance it?" "Experience," she said simply. "We face challenges constantly and we learn. We fail and we try again. We think, we adapt, and we trust those around us. That balance comes from knowing that you are never alone. You face the problem together." The commander nodded slowly, understanding dawning on him. Humans did not rely solely on technology, or on rules, or on prediction. Humans relied on ingenuity, courage, and collaboration. That combination, he realized, could turn the tide even in the most desperate situations. As repairs continued across the station, the human convened a meeting of the entire crew in the observation deck. The holographic screens displayed the aftermath of the asteroid swarm and the massive object that had threatened them. Every minor impact, every energy surge, every fragment of debris was documented. "These threats are not over," she said. "Space is unpredictable. The universe is vast and full of surprises, but you now have something many others lack: understanding and experience. You know what it means to act decisively, to work together, and to adapt under pressure. That knowledge will serve you well." The crew listened intently. There was no fear in their eyes now, only determination. They had been tested and they had survived. The human had shown them how to push beyond fear, beyond hesitation, and beyond protocol. They had learned a new kind of courage, the courage to think, to act, and to trust in themselves and their teammates. One of the younger engineers raised a hand tentatively. "Will there be more threats like this?" "Absolutely," the human replied. "And there will be challenges we cannot yet imagine, but you will face them differently now. You know what humans and those willing to learn can accomplish." She walked to the central console, placing her hand over the holographic display. "This station, your crew, your skills, all of these are tools, but the most important tool is your mind. Use it wisely. Adapt, innovate, protect each other. That is how you survive. That is how you thrive." The commander nodded solemnly. "You have given us more than survival. You have given us understanding, and that is priceless." Repairs continued for several cycles. The crew worked tirelessly, fixing minor hull breaches, recalibrating thrusters, and monitoring energy shields. But throughout it all, the human did not rest. She moved among the teams, offering guidance, encouragement, and insight. Every action she took reinforced the lessons she had taught: adaptability, collaboration, and the power of thinking differently. During a break in the repairs, the human stood at the observation deck, staring at Zelara 9 below. Its swirling orange clouds and jagged mountain peaks reminded her of the unpredictable beauty and danger of the galaxy. She thought of humanity's potential, of the countless challenges yet to come, and of the incredible resilience of intelligent life when it worked together. The commander approached her quietly. "You will leave soon," he said, almost wistfully, "but your presence will remain with us." The human smiled faintly. "Perhaps, but more importantly, the lessons will remain. Humans come and go, but the understanding we leave behind lasts. You will face new threats. You will rise. You will survive, and you will thrive. That is the legacy of adaptability and courage." She turned to the crew assembled in the observation deck. "One more thing," she said, her voice calm but carrying authority. "Never forget this. Space is vast, full of challenges and dangers. But no threat is greater than a determined mind, working with others, using every tool at its disposal. That is humanity's way, and it can be yours too." The crew nodded, absorbing every word. They had witnessed human ingenuity firsthand. They had learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act wisely despite it. They had seen that adaptability, quick thinking, and collaboration could overcome even the most overwhelming odds. As the final repairs were completed, the human prepared to depart. She packed her equipment, double-checked the station's systems, and ensured that every team had the guidance they needed to handle future threats. Her calm presence had become a pillar of stability for the crew, and her departure would leave a void, but also a spark of inspiration that would last for cycles. The commander escorted her to the docking bay. Outside, a small transport shuttle waited, engines humming softly. The human looked back at the station, her expression thoughtful. "Remember," she said, "this is just the beginning. Humans adapt and we rise to every challenge, but so can you if you choose to." The commander bowed slightly. "We will remember. And we will honor the lessons you have taught us." She smiled faintly, then stepped into the shuttle. As the airlock sealed, the engines powered up, lifting her toward the stars. The crew watched in silence, a mixture of awe, respect, and quiet inspiration filling the observation deck. As the shuttle drifted into the void, the human glanced back at the station one last time. "Move over," she whispered softly, not as a command but as a promise. Humanity was coming, and when it did, the galaxy would see ingenuity, courage, and determination in action. The station remained behind, battered but alive. The crew returned to their duties with renewed purpose, understanding now the true value of adaptability, leadership, and collaboration. They had survived not because of technology alone, but because a human had shown them how to think, act, and inspire under pressure. Days turned into cycles, and the station regained its full operational capacity. The lessons the human had imparted continued to resonate, influencing every decision, every maneuver, and every approach to problem solving. Humanity's presence, though brief, had left an enduring mark. The commander looked at the stars, contemplating the vastness of the galaxy. "Humans," he said softly, "they are remarkable, bold, unpredictable, yet brilliant. And when they act together with others, there is no limit to what they can achieve." The human's voice echoed in his memory, a reminder of what he had witnessed: calm decisiveness, ingenuity under pressure, and the power of collaboration. The galaxy was full of challenges, yes, but the station, its crew, and the lessons of humanity would endure. Above Zelara 9, the station floated, resilient and ready. Within its walls, a crew of aliens now understood the essence of human ingenuity. They had learned that courage was not just physical bravery, but the ability to think, adapt, and inspire others in the face of overwhelming odds. And somewhere in the endless reaches of space, the human traveled onward. More challenges awaited, more dangers lurked, and more opportunities to inspire and lead. But she knew one truth above all. Humanity's strength was not in its weapons, its technology, or its numbers. It was in its mind, its courage, and its willingness to act, adapt, and collaborate. The stars stretched infinitely ahead, full of promise and peril alike. And humanity, bold, inventive, and relentless, would meet it all, rising to every challenge, leaving inspiration wherever it went, and proving once again that when humans faced the unknown, they would prevail. The galaxy had witnessed human brilliance, and it would not forget.